Hey, Slater Crusaders, America's the greatest country in the world. Thank you for being here. We are 1 week away. Good night. I want to take some time and address the argument that John Piper made just the other day. John Piper, if you don't know, one of the most influential pastors in the country, I'd say, a pastor that I respect very much. DesiringGod.com is his website. And he wrote an article about how he's not voting for either Trump or Biden. And if I can give just the gist of the argument here, and it's not long, you definitely go read it, is that Christians, or I should say conservative Christians, evangelicals, whatever, pay too much attention to policy, right? We pay too much attention to like Planned Parenthood and abortion policy, and not enough attention on the character failings of Trump. So too much on policy, not enough on the pride of Donald Trump. And I believe his argument is that both of those things are really bad and therefore not deserving of your vote, which is why it seemed like in the article, and I think he may have explicitly said he's not voted for either. Okay, so fair enough, that's his argument. I want to quote this one part at length here. This will summarize it good. He said, "I remain baffled that so many Christians consider the sins of unrepentant sexual immorality, porneia, unrepentant boastfulness, alazoneia, unrepentant vulgarity, aiskorologia, unrepentant, I can't pronounce this word, like factions, like you create factions between people, like discord, discustasai, and the like, to be only toxic for our nation, while policies that endorse baby killing, sex switching, freedom limiting, and socialistic overreach are viewed as deadly." The reason I put those Greek words in parentheses is to give a graphic reminder that those are sins mentioned in the New Testament. To be more specific, they're sins that destroy people. They're not just deadly, they're deadly forever. They lead to eternal destruction. They destroy persons, and through persons, they destroy nations. Right? The Jeremiah verse at the end is about Moab. God said that Moab will be destroyed as a nation because she defied the Lord. Right? So the argument is that Trump is unrepentant to all these bad things and the leader of our nation. Therefore, he's leading our nation to destruction because he, and therefore we, are defying the Lord. Right? So let me just add, I don't think Piper's wrong about the sins of Trump. But my response to that would be, you better add yourself to that long list of sinners. A fundamental realization, I'm not saying Piper doesn't recognize this, he clearly does. A fundamental realization and truth of Christianity is it changes your scale of sin. We think like on a linear scale, right? So imagine this linear, right? This is like how bad of a sinner you are. Jesus is over here, he's perfect. And we think like I'm here, right? Jesus is here, I'm here, and like that other guy is way over here. So Jesus is perfect. I'm about here. Sometimes I'm here, sometimes I'm here. But Trump, unrepentant sinner, he's way over here. But when you become a Christian, you realize that's not how that is. The truth is, Jesus is over here. I'm way over here. And so is Trump, and so is Charles Manson, and we're all like right here. Like Jesus is over here. We're all right here. And yeah, you think you're way better than that other guy, but you are all light years away from Jesus. Makes sense? We like to think we're way further from those other people than we are, and way closer to Jesus than we are too. We're not. Christians need to be careful of being that Pharisee in Luke 18. It's one of my favorite parables in the Bible. When the Pharisee said, "God, I thank you that I am not like other people." The robbers, the evildoers, the adulterers are like that tax collector over there. And that scene ends with one of the best lines. For all those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. So it's something always to be aware of. I love that story. So you can be like, oh yeah, does that make sense? Like, oh, Trump, he's so bad. It's not that much worse than you. So it's something to be aware of. Second, here's my main point. My counter argument to John Piper. I would look at this through Dwight D. Eisenhower's important, urgent matrix. Guys, do we have that first clip here? All right, so actually throw the second one up. So usually it's printed like this, right? And every time something comes across your desk, you got to put it in one of these 4 categories. This is what Dwight D. Eisenhower did, right? So in the upper left, you have things that are important and urgent. You got to do those right now, right? So if you're cooking dinner and my 8-month-old baby falls and hits his head, you drop everything, right? You put down the broccoli and you go help it. It's important and urgent. Bottom right-hand corner, those are things that are not important and not urgent. Those you just throw, those are just, it's busy work. Just get rid of that, right? And everything fits in one of those matrix things, right? All right, guys, you can jump back to the last one. Here. Right, so there's the hierarchy of them all. Okay, so I would argue that Trump's personal failings and maybe the effect he's had on the nation, that's important. No doubt about it. That's important. The character of our leaders is important. First of all, don't put the president on too high of a pedestal either, right? There's lots of leaders in our lives, mothers, fathers, teachers, mentors, pastors, right? We should put way more focus on those leaders than on Trump, the president, right? But that's bigger picture. So anyway, Trump's sins, important. We want a president who of high moral character. Very important. Period. I would also argue that stopping the left's control of the federal government is urgent. Right now. Like Tuesday, like next Tuesday, 7 days from now, must be stopped. It is urgent. So you do that first. Then we can talk about the important thing. Makes sense? And it's a binary choice. I don't know what dream world people are living in. You live in a binary choice. So you deal with the urgent issue now, and then you can address the important thing. And I'll say it again, Christians should not be lifting up Trump as our savior. And I don't know Christians who do, honestly, but he's not. And God does things through very broken and sinful people. There's no doubt about that. Peter's top of mind. I just read the last chapter of John like 2 days ago. It's John 21. Peter denied Jesus 3 times. Jesus said, he said, you will deny me 3 times. And Peter's like, come on, no way, I'll never disown you. Even if I have to die with you, I'll never disown you. And then Jesus was taken inside the high priest's house, and Peter was outside in the courtyard. And 3 times he was asked if he knew Jesus. And 3 times he said, I don't know the man. What? That's insane. And then the last chapter of John, and I could use a better example. No doubt there's better examples of this, right? Like David was a murderer and an adulterer and a man after God's own heart, right? That's a whole different study. Again, this is just top of mind. Jesus tells Peter, hey man, you're gonna be, this is after he comes back from the dead, he's resurrected. He says, Peter, you're gonna be crucified, right? And then John rolls up and Peter says, hey, so Jesus, what about him? What's gonna happen to John here? And Jesus said, none of your business. And then this rumor spread throughout town about what Jesus really said and what he didn't say. And it's right up to the end, right? Right up to the very end. It's the last line of John. Right up to the end, the disciples are asking the wrong questions and misinterpreting what Jesus said and sticking their nose where it shouldn't be stuck. Who's this perfect Christian leader that you're thinking of? I would love nothing, because it wouldn't have been Peter, right? Right, depending on what standard you're using, where you're drawing the line. I would love nothing more than for the progressive agenda to stop dead in its tracks on Tuesday, and then for the country to have an awakening. And politically, nominate a perfect person, right? The person with great policy and great character. Best of both worlds, like a Mike Pence, for instance. It'd be wonderful. Let's deal with the urgent, then we can deal with the important. And then in the meantime, we can stop outsourcing all of our morality to the President of the United States and focus again on being godly fathers and mothers and teachers and mentors and pastors and community leaders. And honestly, the president is a reflection of who we are as a nation. More, that's closer than him being an aberration of it. You can't blame Trump for that. And I'll end with a quote from the great Charles Spurgeon. He said, "There are some who do little else but complain. They complain of the times. They complain of the weather, of the government, of their families, of their trade. If for once they would complain of themselves, they might have a more deserving subject for fault finding." If you give them a call now, Patriot Gold Group, you can still get gold in your possession before the election, which is pretty wild. Or at least get it in the mail it'll be in the mail to get to your house. And you can own gold, something that has previously been reserved for only kings. You can have some in your hands. Right now, gold's $1,900. Some banks are seeing it go to $2,000, $2,400. Van Eck sees $3,400, which would be crazy. Who knows, right? I have no idea. But I look at what's coming with the election chaos, and it's no matter who wins, and we can run through all the different scenarios here, or if no one wins. To me, it's about the value of the dollar. We have not seen the hangover from COVID shutdowns nationwide. It hasn't hit yet, not even close. The Fed printing money, unprecedented. I heard one of the chairs or someone on the Fed said it's unprecedented what the Fed has done. I read one economist said that if the Fed didn't do all this, then the markets would have crashed 10 times over. And that might be true, but this is going to have some implications soon. You can't just print money forever and disaster averted. Buy some gold, maybe some silver too. I always like to have an out. I want to say this too. I always like to have an out. And you buy the gold, you have it. We see how things go in the next few months or whatever, years even. And then you sell it back to Patriot Gold Group. No commission, no fees. No commission, no fees. Call them today, 1-800-798-4260. Or you just keep it forever and hand it down to your kids and grandkids, which is awesome too. 1-800-798-4260 or patriotgoldgroup.com. Hey, Slater Crusaders, I want to talk about the black vote. Gosh, I hate that term. Isn't that such a ridiculous term? The black vote. But that's where we are in this country, and hopefully it's the last time we ever say such a ridiculous term. This is a Rasmussen poll. It's the National Daily. And again, so it's kind of a meaningless number because it's national. It's definitely a meaningless number. National. It's not how, we have an electoral college. I like to see this breakdown per state. But National Daily, black likely voter, job approval for the president. You can see just last week, it was 25%, and now it's 44. Today, the latest today is 44 as well. So it's stuck at 44 another day. That's incredible. That's quite a bump right there, I'd say. 2016, Hillary got, among black men, 81% of the vote. 14% of black men voted for Trump. 81% Hillary, 14% for Trump. Black women, 98% for Hillary and 0% for Trump, right? These two groups make up 10% of the electorate. If half of those black voters who approve of Trump vote for Trump, it's game over, not even close. Like it's a total blowout. So Trump won't, let's look at Pennsylvania. Okay, Trump's gonna win Pennsylvania, especially with fracking, the fracking comments from Biden. And the fact that yesterday Trump did like 3 rallies all across Pennsylvania and Biden doesn't do anything ever. Trump's not gonna win Philadelphia, right? But let's say Clinton, I'm making these numbers up, but let's say Clinton won Philadelphia 90-10. Biden's gonna only win it 70-30. And then it's over, the whole state, forget it. This is MSNBC. These are some black women, undecided voters in Georgia.
What are you looking for? What do you need to hear?
Let's start at the crime bill and the fact that he has not only not apologized, not only
Joe
not
Biden.
Right. He has not only not rectified. Every time he reverts back to, well, it was the Black Caucus members in the church, but they were with it too. Okay, you fooled them as well.
You know, you never said I'm sorry. You know, it's like I didn't do it.
I want to hear an ironclad plan. I don't want to hear if this or if that or after the election.
Does the presence of Kamala Harris on the Democratic ticket sway you at all?
Not at all. I don't know who said she had our vote. She does not. We were supposed to grab onto Kamala with the black girl magic, but that didn't happen because she didn't right her wrongs.
Like, I hold officials accountable. I don't care what color you are. And I think that too often we automatically think that because someone looks like you, that they're going to have your best interests at heart. And that's just not simply true.
Listen, the black vote, no different than the white vote. It's about crime and the economy. That's it. It's the economy and law and order. Same as everyone. Now, 2 other issues at play too. We don't have time to go over it now, but Jason Whitlock wrote a great article the other day at Outkick the Coverage about masculinity and the alpha male and the role of that, which was very good. And then I'll also throw in there abortion being a huge issue. This is Kanye on Joe Rogan's podcast the other day.
The last figure I saw is there were 210,000 deaths due to COVID in America. And everywhere you go, you see someone with a mask on. With the A word, a culture, I'll say it one time, with abortion culture, there are 1,000 black children aborted a day, daily. We are in genocide. So more black children have died in the past since February than people have died of COVID, and everyone wears a mask.
Yeah. So those numbers are true. I looked those numbers up. It's about 365,000 black babies are aborted every year. So that's about 1,000 a day. So that's at play as well. But for everyone, white, black, that's why I hate that idea of the black vote. All right, let's pivot. Let's pivot to, let's do crime first. So this was part of the 60 Minutes interview that didn't air. This is the part that the president released himself, which I don't think we ever really talked about how brilliant it was to do that. But here's part that the president released himself.
I don't think so. You think she'd ask questions like this of Joe? I don't think so.
Can you characterize your supporters? Can you?
Yeah, I think I can. People that love our country, and people that don't want to see the stores get looted and burned down, and people that don't want to see riots and they don't want to see anarchists. Yeah, I think I can. These are people that love our country. And they don't like to see.
But you don't see.
They don't like to see policemen get shot and not be able to defend themselves. They don't like to see rioting in the middle of Fifth Avenue or in the middle of other streets in Portland or other places. And they like it when their president gets the endorsement of virtually every police group and, frankly, almost everybody having to do with law and order. Positive law and order. But you know what they are? They're people that love our country more than anything else, and they like to see our country thrive.
It's a perfect answer. We shared this story about a month ago, and no one ever heard of it unless you live in Las Vegas. You have, but no one else has. I didn't even hear about it when it happened. There was a police officer in Las Vegas who was shot during the protest for George Floyd. He was shot in the head. He's 29. And now he's paralyzed from the neck down for the rest of his life. I think we have a picture of the officer. And just shot straight shot in the head. And here's the guy who did it. The tattoo under his eye. Probably in a gang, right? He's been arrested before. And no one knows that story. And when you do hear that, the guy was just shot, the police officer shot in the head. When you hear that story for the first time, I mean, this was back in when were the George Floyd stuff going on? Like June or whatever? I know when I first heard that, my thought was, well, I never heard that. And then I think, what else is the media hiding from me? What else do they not want me to know? Big picture, Biden's for defunding the police, right? First of all, they want to shut down entire cities for years, have people lose their jobs, empty the jails, and defund the police. And then they're shocked when crime goes up. And don't forget this Wisconsin town. This is another video that did not make the rounds. That should have. Here, look, these are people breaking the windows of houses. Imagine you're inside in the middle of the night and just all your windows are broken, right? Like that's a whole, and we don't have time to go over this now, but that's a totally different thing than even breaking storefront windows downtown. So the old political adage is it's the economy, stupid, right? Well, Trump wins there. He's the one who wants to open it, allow it to exist. Remember back in the day, the political point was, vote for me, I want to lower taxes, he wants to raise them. Now it's, vote for me, I want to allow businesses to exist. And that guy doesn't. He won't even let businesses open. What are we talking about here? But that argument of it's the economy, stupid, there's an assumed prerequisite there of law and order. There's no economy if you're busting down storefront window, right? If you're not safe, there's no economy. And people don't like police officers getting shot in the head, which is why you haven't heard of that Las Vegas police officer. Also, just the other day in Houston, black police officer, 40 years, Harold Preston, was shot and killed. He was responded to a domestic disturbance call, and he was killed by a illegal immigrant who's been arrested 6 times for violent crimes and never deported. How about that? So this isn't only our broken immigration system, like how is that guy not deported? But that's our progressive justice system. That he's even allowed to be out anywhere, even if he was a citizen. And how about this? October 18th, he showed up, it was at his ex-wife's house, and the story is he wanted to take one of their kids or his kids or whoever to McDonald's, and she said no. So he took out his gun and pointed it at her and the kids, and the police came, and the DA decided not to press charges. That was October 18th. On October 17th, the police were called to the same house, same guy. So the argument is that if police arrested him and he was charged with something, even if he was released, if charges were pressed, then the gun would have been seized, which was the same gun that he used to kill Officer Preston, who, by the way, has been on the force for 40 years and was set to retire in 2 weeks. He had 2 weeks left on the job. That was in Houston. You heard that story? It happened, I think it was this weekend. Have you heard that story? National news? No? Yeah, it's the economy, stupid, and it couldn't be more clear. One wants to allow it to open and the other doesn't. But even before that, it's law and order. Everyone sees that. The white vote and the black vote. Black vote. True story. Mike Slater. David Harsanyi is going to be here next. Spread the word. Hey, Slater Crusaders. Always honored to talk to one of my favorite guests, David Harsanyi from the National Review. Of course, you got to follow him and read everything that he writes. David, good morning, first of all.
Good morning.
We need to talk about the Supreme Court and, like, what an incredible victory that was. And I go back to 4 years ago when people weren't sure who this Donald Trump guy was and what he was going to do with the Supreme Court. And look at what we have now. What's your make of it?
Well, I'm obviously pretty pleased with it because for me, at least, an originalist court is one of the most important things that can be achieved in a Trump administration. And obviously many people voted for him because of the list he sent out and because he had promised to appoint justices that were going to be textualists rather than other kinds. So I'm happy about that. And I think Mitch McConnell obviously deserves a lot of credit for stopping Merrick Garland when there was an enormous amount of pressure on him not to do that. And, elections have consequences. And the consequence of this election is that the Supreme Court is going to hopefully turn, towards originalism. So I was happy with. I'm happy with it. I'm happy the way it went through, and there was no reason not to do it. Originally, you'll remember all the experts said that people are going to be mad about it, that the Republicans are going to lose votes over it. Now they may lose everything anyway, but it's not going to be because of this. I think polls show now that most voters want Amy Coney Barrett to be, put on the court, and now she is.
Yeah. You had, just on textualism, you had a great line the other day that I stole. I sourced it, don't worry, that there's a difference between textualism and literalism. And I think it was about the Second Amendment, right? About how the Second Amendment doesn't say everyone's guaranteed to have a Kentucky rifle musket or whatever. Can you speak to that?
Yeah. I mean, people always say, well, when they wrote the Bill of Rights and the Constitution, they had only muskets and, no one really wanted you to have a machine gun. Well, I suppose that's debatable on what they wanted you to have, but they certainly weren't idiots, right? And they're not literalists, because if that were the case, then we could only write on parchment paper. It doesn't specify what you can have or can't have. It specifies an idea and a principle of self-defense, of freedom of faith, of freedom of not being, of your home, of property rights, things like that. It's not like they said, oh, only this kind of Protestantism is freedom of religion, but Scientology won't, or whatever, then that would be a different case. But, this idea that originalism is about muskets, that, originalism about women is about women not voting. No, there's an amendment process. There are things we do. The Constitution is a living document in a different sort of structured way than they want it to be, which they want it to mean nothing. They want it to mean whatever contemporary people are talking about, whatever the majority wants. And then you don't have a constitution anymore. You just have a bunch of people telling you, you just have elections and direct democracy. And I don't think that's what the founders wanted. Actually, I know that's not what the founders wanted.
Yeah. I want to switch gears here. I'm not trying to start something, but former colleague David French, who I like. We had David French on the show the other day. And have you read this article from John Piper by any chance?
No, I don't think so. What's it about?
Okay. John Piper, it's about how the conservative Christians, he's at desiringgod.com. He says conservative Christians are putting too much emphasis on the policy and the importance of that, like abortion specifically, and not enough emphasis on the sinful character of the president. And he was making the argument why he's voting for neither. And I think French is kind of is making a similar argument too, right? Like that the character of the president is of great importance, and no Christian should vote for someone of such depraved moral character. I think that's a fair assessment of what these guys are saying. Maybe you want to reiterate that differently, but what do you make of that as a Christian's role in voting for a sinful man?
I have a surprise for you. I am not only not a Christian, I'm an atheist, and I would vote for a sociopath if he put judges I wanted through over a good. Thing is this, I think character does matter because it says something about how you comport yourself in office, right? And it says something about maybe how you would avoid being corrupt or whatever it does. I mean, I'm not saying character doesn't matter. It matters. But to me, politics is a purely transactional arrangement. I don't really care about the faith of the president or anything like that. He's not my pope. He administers the state. He's not supposed to have a role that people have assigned him. Now, obviously, I wish that Trump wasn't saying, and I should say this. I understand the argument that people like David French make about the president. I think that I always say this, but I wish he was 30% less crazy and 30% less, aggressive and things like that. I think he'd be a pretty popular president probably, but he's not. But his policies are moral. So what's worse, what you say or what you do? So let's say you're a Christian. I'm pro-life. Do you think that what's worse, tweeting something ugly about someone or supporting state-funded third trimester abortions? I mean, to me, the morality of the latter is far more concerning than the former, because Donald Trump's going to go away one day, may go away one day soon, but that policy is going to remain for a long time. So, I think the emphasis is far too much on his personal predilections, things like that. Everyone knows who he is. And let me just say this too. I don't think Biden's such a great guy either. I mean, he's done a lot of things and said a lot of terrible things in his past. It's just that it's covered differently and the hysteria over it is different. So it's a complicated question, and I'm not going to tell Christians how to vote or anyone how to vote, but I think that there's too much emphasis on his personal shortcomings and not enough on the good moral things that, at least if you're a conservative, he's done.
I agree. Can you speak a second to the transactional, like you said, it's like politics is like a transactional relationship. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, I mean, you could be a Satanist who has orgies every, weekend. But if you're going to lower top marginal tax rates, I'm going to vote for you. I don't really care what you do in your life because you're just a politician. You're not my priest. My moral community is the local church or people in my family or those I know. I don't think that listen, I'd rather have a really moral president, right? I'd rather have a guy who's nice to everyone and does what is necessary. But you're presented with certain choices, and these are the choices. So for me, politicians are people who do things in the state and who are supposed to protect the Constitution. Now, if you're going to put let's be honest, Amy Coney Barrett seems to be a wonderfully moral and excellent person, and they still had no problem going out against her. Brett Kavanaugh was a moral person, and yet they smeared him. So I think that the way I look at politics as a transactional relationship is how 99% of people look at politics. So, they just don't admit it. Now, I'm not saying David French isn't admitting it. I'm just saying that most people don't look at it that way.
Yep, I think that's right. What do you think this president is exceptionally corrupt or worthy of the hysteria that the media has put on him? Let me say one last thing. I saw some undecided voters. They weren't undecided. They were big Biden supporters on MSNBC, like suburban women, right? And they were talking about how he's so division and we can't even talk to each other anymore. And they put that all on Trump's back. How much do you put on Trump? How much do you put on the media? How do you think through that?
It is a fantasy that we've ever, it's a fantasy that we've ever been this big, happy family and that there's been unity. That's just nonsense. It's just that when people in power, like when Barack Obama's in power, suing nuns, compelling people to do all kinds of things, ramming through Obamacare, hardly being able to do it, having to use all kinds of legislative, parliamentary, shortcuts to do it. Then we're not divided. No one talks about division, But when Donald Trump becomes president and has the same power that Obama, not any more power than Obama had, all of a sudden everything's falling apart. It's because one side is they've been acting hysterically. Every time they don't get what they want, they think something's wrong with the system. The system needs to be fixed. They haven't lost a presidential election in their minds since, I don't know when, because in 2000, they say they were cheated out of it, and now they say they were cheated out of it. Even in 2004, if you look back at a lot of the coverage, there was a talk of how, Diebold machines were voting the wrong way and this and that. They can never just lose an election, and they act hysterical every time a normal thing happens, like a Supreme Court justice being nominated by the elected president who won through the Electoral College, which all of a sudden is a bad thing, and who was confirmed through the Senate the same way every single Supreme Court judge has been confirmed for the Senate, period, right? But all of a sudden, it's one of the darkest days in the history of the Senate. That's what Chuck Schumer said yesterday. It's just, it's hystericism, and it's like, it never ends. I don't know how we're going to go forward if Donald Trump somehow wins this election.
Totally. My last question for you, and this a little pre-post-mortem. If Trump wins, I have to imagine people are going to look back and say, gee, maybe Biden should have done something the last week of the campaign, right? Like, this is weird, right? There was all this criticism of Hillary she never went to Wisconsin. But is it just me? It seems like Biden's not going anywhere. What are you seeing there?
I was thinking about this the other day, and someone had mentioned it, a colleague of mine. But yeah, you're right. I mean, if he loses, everyone's going to be like, why did you leave your basement? Like, why didn't you go anywhere? Why didn't you campaign? This was a terrible, someone's going to be thrown under the bus, one of his, or came up with this strategy. It's funny because I looked back to see what Hillary was doing this week and what people were saying about Hillary, and what she was doing, and what the big story was, I think it was Politico had, was that she is so assured of winning, right? That she is now dumping extra money into Texas, into Missouri. She's trying to make, strengthen her. She's trying to create a landslide victory. That's how big it is. Now, it's not about winning. That's in the bag. Now it's about, opening, pioneering, I don't know. I trust pollsters to some extent. I'm not saying that maybe Biden's going to win. It looks like he's going to win, but a lot of the same factors are in play, at least in the coverage and the polling that I saw before. There are differences, don't get me wrong, but this idea that they're just going to walk away with it, I think it's premature. We'll see soon enough.
And the good news is, yeah, exactly. We'll know real soon. David Harsanyi, always a pleasure to talk to you. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's David, Harsanyyi. And of course, just go to National Review, and David's all right there. We got one more segment. True story. Mike Slater, spread the word. Hey, Slater Crusaders. I love David Harsanyi. Love talking to him all the time. Super grateful for him. I want to talk about two big picture reasons why I think Trump's going to win, and there are reasons why he won in 2016, and nothing's changed. If anything, it's just 10x what it was. As Harsanyi noted, any force that existed in 2016 that led to a Trump victory it still exists today. The media's doubled down on their hackery, and cancel culture is way worse than it was even 4 years ago. I got to play a couple clips here. This is Joe Rogan asking Matthew McConaughey. I did not know that Matthew McConaughey was a Christian. But asking if his Christian faith has affected his career. And here's what he said.
I have had moments where I was on stage receiving an award in front of my peers in Hollywood. And there were people in the crowd that I have prayed with before dinners many times. And when I thank God, I saw some of those people go to clap, but then notice that well, it's going to be a bad thing on my resume, and then sit back on their hands.
Oh, wow.
And I've seen people read the room and go, whoa, that wouldn't bode well for me in the future. If for getting a job or getting votes or what have you. Yeah. I have seen that. I've witnessed that.
By the way, just to be clear, thanking God. Can't do that. Sarah Silverman, of all people. Sarah Silverman, comedian, super far left, like as far left as you go, talking about cancel culture and how it's a problem. Here.
Christian Picciolini, my friend, who was a neo-Nazi for years, since he was from 14 to, into his 20s, late 20s maybe, was the head of a neo-Nazi, whatever KKK chapter where he lived. He has spent the last 30 years getting people out of hate groups. That's what he does. But he went towards love. He was 14, he was smoking a joint, and an older kid took the joint out of his hand and threw it out and said, "You don't need that stuff, man." And gave him a place where he was accepted and cared for and loved. And that was a hate group, a neo-Nazi group, where he found family and camaraderie and a place to be when both of his parents worked all day. Going towards love can be a hate group. It could be the drama club. But that's all that it is at its root. It's just going towards where the love is. And you're going to find yourself doing a lot all through your life and maybe wonder about it. I always think, like, in this cancel culture, and we all know what I'm talking about, whether you think there is one or there isn't one, or where you stand on it, and there's a lot of gray matter there. But without a path to redemption, when you take someone, you found a tweet they wrote 7 years ago or a thing that they said, and you expose it and you say, this person should be no more, banish them forever. They're going to find some place where they are accepted. And it's not going to be with progressives, which ironically means to be changed, progress. If we don't give these people a path to redemption, then they're going to go where they are accepted, which is the mother dark side. I think there should be some kind of path. Do we want people to be changed, or do we want them to stay the same, to freeze in a moment we found on the internet from 12 years ago? And so we can point to ourselves as right and them as wrong. It's righteousness porn.
Now, about how that was a force in 2016, remember Hillary called you deplorables. But she said something right after that. She also called you irredeemable. Trump was at a rally yesterday, and he said he brought that up, and he said she also called you irredeemable, which I think is worse, but it didn't stick. Interesting, right? Now, to Sarah Silverman, you're the dark side. So I just want to be clear here. But you should see the comments. You know, people, oh, you're an apologist for fascism, and people justifying cancel culture because it's the only tool that the powerless have. You know, destroying someone's life, which looks a lot like power, actually. This is Scott Kaufman. He said there's a severe shortage of grace right now in America. Everyone's slightest flaws, gaffes, blunders are magnified, treated as the totality of the person and an enduring trait of the person. This is another sort of pandemic. People hate this cancel culture going on right now. They hate it. And Trump is a rebuke to it. He's something that people can do right now. At least it feels like he's the rebuke that can stop it. Now, can he stop it? No, it'll probably get way worse when he wins, right? But it feels like a single anonymous thing that I can do right now to say enough of that. That's out of control. That has to stop. I heard someone put it as like, it's like Trump is like the middle finger to that. And where that was true in 2016, you're deplorable and irredeemable, it's even more true now. We have billions of examples that we could share. So that force is still in effect. The other force that's still in effect is the media and the hackery of the media. Check out the CNN headline. This is amazing. A right-wing offensive is underway to discredit social media companies just days before the election. What? A right-wing offensive is underway to discredit. Heather Heying, she said, no. A social media offensive is underway to silence conservative voices just days before the election. Fixed it for you. Isn't that amazing? They're trying to spin this as, it's like we're attacking Twitter, as opposed to Twitter not allowing the New York Post to get into their Twitter account for over a week because of the Hunter Biden story. Or you have this gem, and we could do this all stinking day. This is Mashable. Let's see, I don't know if I have it here. Oh, yeah, white supremacists responsible for majority. You see it right there. The subheadline is, subheadline is basically the same. Here's the line that matters, okay? You get the point, right? Like white supremacists. You think a white supremacist are responsible? What are you talking about? Here's the line that's in there. You have to dig down into the report. Incidents like hate crimes or protests and riots like the social justice demonstrations we saw this summer after the police killing of George Floyd, didn't factor into the research. What? So gosh golly, it turns out that if you don't include what you don't want to include, you can come up with whatever results you want. Shocking. As long as you don't count most of it, the rest of it is all you have left. And that's white supremacist violence. It's like, on the big tech, I should have shared this. YouTube, yesterday, for the very first time in YouTube, they put up a fact check alert. So if you YouTubed, same company, Joe Biden fracking ban, first of all, the algorithm would change, and the very first result was this story about how he didn't say he would ban fracking. But above that, there's a fact check, and it links you over to Snopes.com to tell you the truth about it all. First time they've ever done that, 8 days before the election. Pretty amazing. Now, I gotta go. Let's put all this together. This is a Gallup International survey. The question is, would you fight for your country? And I think we have the list right here, if you can see it. Yeah, it's hard to see. The point is, no. Among Western European nations, they're all in the teens or 20s. America's only 44%. And this shouldn't be surprising, because why would you fight for something that's not good? And kids all across the Western world are told that America and the West is terrible and evil and deplorable and irredeemable. And it's because there's been so many emperors with no clothes who have been able to pull a fast one on all of us for decades now, and no one's had the courage to call them out. Trump crushes it all. That's the point. And it says everything that these elites hate him so much. People see that and will vote accordingly. Again. Let's do it again tomorrow. True story. Mike Slater. Spread the word.